Hey everybody, I'm John, and this is Blind Whiskey Reviews. Hey everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today here on Blind Whiskey Reviews, the most honest reviews on YouTube as always. Don't forget, if you like the videos, hit the subscribe button down below and hit the bell notification so you know every time I'm uploading a new video and every time I'm starting a new live stream. And if you wouldn't mind and you do like the videos, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Today I'm bringing you a very special video that I've been looking forward to doing for quite a while. And this is kind of going to be an infrequent series that we're going to do on the channel where we're kind of going to dive into looking at, is older whiskey better? You hear a lot of talk between people that have been drinking whiskey for quite a while that whiskey used to be better. That whiskey used to taste better. They used to put this into it. They used to do that to it. These whiskeys used to have age statements, and that's really kind of what we're going to focus on here in this segment. Is we're going to take a whiskey that used to have an age statement on it. This time will being the Elijah Craig, and we're going to taste the age-stated whiskey compared to, in this case, two versions of the non-age stated whiskey. So today we're going to do this, which is the Elijah Craig 12-year. This is a back label 12-year. So if you're not familiar, Elijah Craig used to have, at least on this style bottling, a big red 12 on the front, which would say obviously 12 years. Right before they decided to transition away from the 12-year age statement and go to a non-age statement, they moved the 12-year sneakily to the back. So this is a back label 12-year, and I will put the comparison of these two labels up on the screen so you can just take a look and see kind of what they did. When they transitioned the 12-year age statement away, they just removed a few words off the back of the bottle, which took away the age statement. So this is a non-age stated, older style Elijah Craig bottling. And then obviously this is the more recent bottling that they've done in the last couple of years when they transitioned to this style bottle. So also a no age statement Elijah Craig. Now, according to the former master distiller at Heaven Hill, he claimed that this whiskey tended to still be in the 10 to 11 year average range. I'm sure there's younger whiskey in it, but when they averaged the ages of the whiskeys that they put into it, it was somewhere in about that 10 to 11 year old range. So you would think that would mean that it doesn't taste vastly different. But why don't we put it to the test and find out? So I've got each one of these whiskeys poured in this glass. I don't know which whiskey is in which glass. The answer to that is on the bottom of each of these bottles. So we'll match those numbers up at the very end. But without further ado, let's start drinking some whiskey. We'll start with the nose. This has a very standard Elijah Craig nose. Those nice dark fruits, caramel, vanilla, some nice sweetness to it. You can definitely smell some oaky, woody notes on number one. Number two is definitely more dialed back than number one is. Similar notes, but they're definitely not as strong, not as pungent as number one. I'm not getting that oaky note. Now, number three, on the other hand, the pungency, the potency is definitely dialed back up. It's much more similar to number one. Some nice dark fruit. It's got that very similar fruity character to it. But again, not quite as much oak on the nose as number one. So, let's get into the taste. Cheers. Yeah, very standard Elijah Craig profile. Nice dark fruits, caramel, very good bourbon. Got some nice lingering vanilla, there's a bitterness to it, an oaky bitterness. It kind of dries your palate out, doesn't leave you with so much sweet on your palate. Definitely got some oak on it. That one's tasting pretty good. Yeah, I mean, like the nose kind of showed on these, this one definitely has significantly less flavor. It's much more sharp, slightly more harsh on the alcohol bite. The flavors are sharper. The sweetness and the fruitiness is there, but it's not as deep, not as rounded. I mean, if I'm just taking a shot in the dark at this point, this feels younger than this does. Let's move on to number 3. Again, kind of like the nose showed, these have kind of stayed very similar to the noses. So we're back to the much more bold, rich flavors here. Some lingering vanilla. Again, nice fruity on the front to mid palate. Dark fruits. Touch of cherry. Some berries. Not quite as bitter as number 1. Doesn't have that tannic bitterness that I would think is from the oak. At least not as strongly anyways. Maybe now that I'm letting it linger, it is picking up a little bit of bitterness. It definitely doesn't have the oaky taste that I feel number 1 does. At least not as strong. So let's give it one more pass through here, and we'll kind of make our judgments on which one I think is best, and then we'll do the big reveal. We'll go backwards this time, starting with 3. All right, I think I've made my decision here. Got some good tastes on these. Got a pretty good feel for what they've got going on. So I'm going to say, for me, the best tasting is number 1. Number 1 has got the nice bold flavor, which number 3 has as well. But it's got a little bit more oak, I feel like. It's got a little bit more complexity going on. So I feel like number 1 tastes the best to me. Followed by number 3. Number 3 is pretty similar to number 1, but number 3 doesn't have quite as much oak character. The wood isn't as forward in this one. And but the flavors are equally as bold in terms of the fruitiness, the vanillas, the caramels, all that's kind of at the same level. Now number 2 was a pretty steep drop off in terms of the flavor. Nowhere near as bold as either of these guys. Like I said, a little bit more sharp, a little bit more harsh. All are good and all are perfectly drinkable, but these two are definitely better. And like I said, I think 1 is definitively my winner. So if I have to guess, I think I've probably put them in this order, which is 1 is the 12-year, 3 is the non-age stated older bottle, and 2 is the newer bottling. These two could probably be interchangeable because I don't really know what the differentiation was. I don't know if they've slowly progressed to putting younger whiskey in the newer small batch. So we don't really know what's going on there. But let's do the big reveal and find out what I put for number 2. So we'll start here at the new bottling of Elijah Craig, and this is number 2. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but the new bottling is number 2. So just like we thought, this one is the most youngest tasting, isn't as bold, doesn't have as much flavor. So number 2 is the latest batch, well, not the latest batch, but the newer version of the Elijah Craig small batch. So this is the non-age stated Elijah Craig in the old bottling, and that is it's number 1. So that would leave us being with the 12-year being number 3. So strangely enough, I'm tasting more oak in number 1. And like I said, I don't know how big of a change they made between these two. These could have been bottled very close to each other. Maybe they hadn't made significant changes in the quantity of 12-year whiskey they were putting in it. Maybe they just started to put some 11-year or 10-year. So like I said, both of these were significantly better than the newer version. So the 3 is the 12-year. Both very good, both very bold, and significantly bolder than what they're putting out now. So does this answer our question of did whiskey used to be better? Yes, it does. Whiskey, at least in the case of Elijah Craig, used to be better. These guys are definitively better than this is tasting to me right now. So as far as did the older whiskey used to be better, that isn't necessarily the case. And I'd love to do this again at some point and see if that stays the same. But at this point in time, I felt like these were pretty close. For me, one edged it out with a little bit better, more complexity and oaky character. But I would say they're relatively close in flavor profile. So, anyways, if you guys like Elijah Craig and have had the opportunity to do a side-by-side like this, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your opinion. Most people say that they prefer the 12-year-old version of Elijah Craig to what they're currently putting out. And at least in this side-by-side comparison, that pans out to be true for sure. So in this case, the older whiskey is better. So if you did have this opportunity, leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. As always, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at blind_reviews. You can send me an email at blindwhiskeyreviews@gmail.com. And until next time, cheers.